online. Hello and welcome to LB Presents Unite on Purpose. And this is my YouTube channel that interviews great business leaders that, in my view, are going to become world leaders that are looking to impact change in the world. I started this channel because I wanted to create a purpose-led movement that was all heading towards global unity. It's my belief that we can shift the world into a new era through the eyes of brands. And what if we could shift education, health, manufacturing, retail to be able to impact change in the world? I would like to create the face of modern business and the face of the modern world. And so we have a technology platform called Bob Earth that's the first purpose-led platform that connects businesses to trade. And I've been interviewing some of these businesses over the last few months that are really out there doing impactful things. So let me introduce to you Tom Hall. Now, he is an exceptional character because his business has been going since the 1950s. And I have to say, you're looking very good on it, Tom. And in fact, he came from the Hall family, and they have been known for agriculture and for growing things. And if anybody has been to Kew Gardens or the National Trust, you will have seen some of their exceptional greenhouses standing there. And I know that I'm one of the biggest fans when I go to the places and actually go into the greenhouse. So let me introduce to you Tom, who I've had the great pleasure of working with over the last few years. Thanks for coming on the show.
Pleasure. I managed to get on after a technical hitches here and there, but
there's
I'm
always
here, which is good.
Many technical hitches when we've all been in lockdown. I think
of course, yes.
T-shirt saying either unmute or I'm struggling to get on.
Exactly, and so, I'm culprit of that.
Look, the last time that I was with you was obviously pre-COVID.
Yeah.
We were able to actually sit in your beautiful gardens of your offices. You have probably one of the most exceptional gardens that I've had the pleasure of going to and having a meeting out of. And we discussed about where you were going with your business, the family business. So first off, talk to me about, it's been going since the 1950s. And so you are now running the business. Before I bring you into the fact that we have been in a pandemic and what on earth has that been like? What was it been like being in a family business and in a business from the 50s and now running it yourself? Can you give me a bit of background to the business?
Yeah, so I will disclose that my family wasn't involved in the 50s.
Oh.
We didn't get involved until the mid 80s. But I have always been involved in a family business environment, largely because my dad's a farmer. And if you've ever been to a farming family, you know that no one escapes being part of that business. So I can still remember now many Boxing Days spent harvesting parsnips or possibly leeks and sending them off to one of the supermarkets. At the time, I didn't particularly enjoy it, but looking back now, actually, I remember it quite fondly. So being part of a farming family, the business was always very much there and present. So I don't think I've ever known anything else. And when I'm one of four, and I think looking back, I was deemed the most likely to go and work in a proper business.
All right.
Yep. I was going to go and work in, London and such like. And when I left college, I had actually lined up to go and work at a management consultants. But just as I was leaving to go off on a bit of a play cricket in Australia, this business that my dad, because he's a farmer, had a little finger in the pie, went through some difficulties, and he decided that I needed to go and keep an eye on it, that business being Alitex. And I ended up spending 18 months here before heading up to London to experience the big wider world. So yes, one thing I very much learned from my father was that sense of making your own decisions. So being beholden to no one else. And so running your own business sounds a bit twee, but I guess it was a destiny for me. Certainly, it's all I know.
So look, I came from an entrepreneurial family as well. Both my grandparents were tailors and they had their own businesses. And my dad had his own business and my brothers have their own business. So I was used to, I've never had an experience of anybody working for anybody else. And so I can relate to you being in an entrepreneurial family. I'd love to know, well, first off, did you go and do the management course?
I did. So I went up I spent 3 years in London and in various guises. I did thoroughly enjoy the first year or two because it was full of graduates just having fun. But once it all settled down and we all started adopting our roles, I started to see that you had very little influence, if you like, at the bottom of a business. And I just felt that I wasn't having conversations that inspired me. People were obviously starting out on their career, but they looked like they were going to be journeymen. And I found, the big thing for me, I was in the basement of Goldman Sachs one July morning. I'd been there from 6:30. It was on a day that South Africa were playing England at cricket in Lords. And I spent the whole day in this basement at Goldman Sachs, on computers or whatever else. And I realized when I came out at the end of the day that I'd missed just so much. It was a beautiful day. Did I really feel fulfilled? Did I feel inspired? And the answer was categorically no. And within a month, I'd left and I'd gone back to work for myself. I never totally lost my contact with Alitex, but it was only at that point that I realized I needed to work for myself.
And so did you take over the business from your dad at that point, or did you work together for a while? And can you tell us what was the business at that point so that my viewers can understand what was the business, what did it transition into?
Okay, so Alitex always had a horticultural background. When I got involved in 1991, it had been making aluminium greenhouses for nurserymen for around about 25 years. That's right. Previous to that, it was a supplier of various accessories and such like to greenhouses. So it had relatively established name in the South. It only had 12 people working for it. And the reason my dad had got involved is that, as I say, I mentioned it before, as a farmer, and he was definitely an entrepreneur, he had a little finger in several pies. As you do. And he'd come into ownership of Alitex largely because he'd lent the use of a barn to one businessman, and over the years had lent a little bit of money and ended up owning a sizable proportion of that business. That business in the mid-80s went on a bit of an acquisition spree, as it seemed to everyone did in the late 80s. And then it all fell apart in the early 90s when there was a recession, and Dad was sort of left with these 2 or 3 small businesses turning over a few £100,000. He was never involved executively. He was a sort of interfering owner, if you like, but he was always interested in this stuff. The chap who was running it at the time, the business was, it was a bit hand to mouth. It was you had to hold on to your hat some of the time, and he just felt uncomfortable running it and literally walked away. And that's when Dad said, "Crikey, Tom, you need to come with me, son. You're going to run this business for a short while whilst I find someone else." So I went down to the business, and if I'm honest, and he dragged me in as his 21-year-old son in front of this small group of people who looked at me, as you would imagine, with a degree of skepticism. And he said, "Right, here's my son. He's going to keep an eye on you all for the next couple of months before I find someone else." In the event, I really just spent the first 2 or 3 months getting to know them, asking what they were doing, what I was doing. I painted the office. I think I was very naive because I asked questions about, I don't know, I was asking about numbers. I was very interested in margins, all that sort of stuff. And essentially, I went through a process of just gleaning all this information from this group of people who knew the business inside out. And before I knew it, 18 months had gone by. And although we'd had some ups and downs, we were just on the cusp of a relative growth in that particular market. I then disappeared off up to London, as I said, for 3 years. And by the time I'd come back 3 years later, the business had started, the industry had started to see a bit of growth.
And was that in the recession when you came back, or was that because I had my business in the first recession I went through was around that period of time.
Yeah. So I think my memories are a bit sketchy, but I think I joined during the recession. When I say very hand to mouth, we used to meet every couple of days as a group and decide who was going to get paid, who was going to take holiday in lieu of money, how we were going to chase this customer, what we were going to do tomorrow. That's how it survived.
Stage business, right?
Yeah. So it was a bit of a culture shock when I went up to London to see that's how every business ran. But yes, it was in a recession. And what actually happened when I came back was that a couple of other people had entered the marketplace, and they were much more sophisticated than we were at the marketing and the advertising. And really, we sort of held on to their coattails in terms of spreading the word. However, looking back now, we were, if you like, in the vanguard of the design of the greenhouse, the quality of the greenhouse. I wouldn't have said we were particularly customer focused. I would say we were often fighting with our customers at that time. And it was a few years later that we realized actually we needed to make advocates of our customers. A little while to cotton on to that, but it was quite nice.
All right, so Tom, I'm going to fast forward to today. Thank you for introducing me to your younger self. I didn't know any of that, actually, I have to say, Tom. So that was hugely knowledgeable for me to get to know about you. Right, so we're now in today. And look, I've spent many days with you in your business, and I know what a wonderful community and culture you've built inside your business, and I want to commend you on that. But also, actually, what an exceptional business that you have. You have greenhouses, glass houses in some of the most prestigious places in the country, Kew Gardens, National Trust, the Pig Hotel, which is one of my favorites, a number of different places. So talk to me about today and, what does the business look like today and so forth? And what has it been like actually going through a pandemic recession?
Okay. Well, the business is now, we have 85, actually we're recruiting, so we're heading up towards 90 people in the business. We are predominantly greenhouses and all things associated with glass houses, but we also have a conservatory arm and a brand by the name of Marston and Lantinger. We focus very much. We decided, actually, believe it or not, 25 years ago that we wanted to be absolutely the number one in the industry in terms of quality, in terms of the very best that you can get.
And you are, I have to say.
Well, we certainly periodically, obviously, we really try and stay very close to what we think we've become by asking ourselves, why is it that our customers come to us? And we feel that it's firstly because we do make the most beautiful glass house in the world today, Victorian glass house. Secondly, we provide the very best ownership experience of one of those glass houses. And thirdly, that we are the choice of the industry experts, be it the National Trust, Kew, or various garden designers. And we've learned that if we just make sure that we never take our eye off those, then we shouldn't let down our customers, because every time you sell something, you make a promise, and the key is not to let that promise down. I suppose our turnover is around about £10 million now. As you say, we do at work in some of the most wonderful places,
Oh,
not just in this country, but on the planet, actually. And I can't begin to tell you some of the homes that we go to. We have a team of 12 installers, and they get to see how the others live in many ways. But
I
they
bet.
also, one of the things they say is that these successful people who choose to have one of our products, they are absolutely at their best in their garden.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the real privileges of working in this industry, is that when people are in their garden or doing what they're passionate about, they just give you their best. So our customers are delightful. If you let them down, they're less delightful. But
Yeah,
you
right.
do get a real opportunity to see them absolutely thriving. Um, we have to work hard to maintain that with our product development, and it's a continual challenge to deliver on that promise. But that's who we are, and it's as I say, it's a real privilege to be in this industry and to work with the people we do.
Okay, so Tom, I have, like I said, had the privilege of coming in and working with you and the business and a lot of the people inside the business. And myself and Darren came in, and I prodded and pushed a little bit, only a little bit, I like to say.
You were gentle.
And one of the key things, as you know, that I asked you was, Tom, what is it that you want to be known for? Because I knew there was a real passion and purpose, and you've been going for such a long time. And I saw the absolute quality and the culture that oozed out of everything that you did. And would you share that with everybody that's watching the show today?
Absolutely. I will just couch it to say, when you came along with Darren, you did ask all those questions, and you forced us to do some slight navel gazing, is probably overstating it, but you said, look, there's clearly something here.
Yeah.
And that first day was one of the most enjoyable days for me and satisfying days, because at the end of that day, in a group of 10 of us, we had concluded that we were passionate about all that grows. You actually encouraged us to talk about that, what that meant. And since that day, we haven't had any cause to look in any other direction. It actually is how we make decisions. It's our guiding light. And the lovely thing for me is it's actually been our guiding light for many years, unbeknown to me, I suppose. So yes, our purpose is we're just passionate about every element, all that grows. And grows means every different things to lots of people. But it really has encapsulated how we work, our culture, who we recruit, all those sorts of things. So I think it was in there, but you've made us realize it and become much more conscious of it. So yeah, I'm excited about it now.
Oh, thank you, Tom. I have to say, it's one of my most pleasurable times. I know I get to delve deep in after that, and we build the commercial model. But the exceptional day for me is when people, what I say, remember who they are and why they're on this planet and why they're doing what they're doing. Because when you find that, you build your whole business around that. And it's beautiful to watch people bloom.
But do you know what? I've only I put all these pieces together, and I've always been very, I suppose, focused and aware of our values and the culture. But I hadn't fully appreciated that, the culture which comes from your values really dictates your destiny or your success. That oft used term, which is culture eats strategy for breakfast. And success for us is bringing that purpose to life. So we've really been able to join up these values into our culture, and that is driving our purpose. And when you look around the business and you see us behaving in accordance with our values, that is success. That is driving our purpose. So it beautifully aligns everything we've been doing. And I'm learning all the time how it all joins up. It staggers me how ignorant I've been, and I am, but it's a release. Anyway, so yeah, I think that purpose now is our success. So every day we assess our success based on whether we're achieving that purpose and what more we can do. And of course, the great thing is it's a journey, not without end, but it is a journey that in many directions is not only very worthy, but it just carries on. So it's exciting for us.
So my question for you is, I know that when you found your purpose, passionate about all that grows, you also went and did your personal brand, didn't you, Tom? And you looked inwardly at yourself as well as the business. And yeah. I remember you sat with me over a few days and you had a few light bulb moments. And one of the pleasurable things that I found was not only working with the business, but actually working with you and aligning both purposes together. And I wondered if you could just touch on that a little bit for me.
Yes. So I suppose I'm typically English or British in that I find talking about myself a little bit, somewhat uncomfortable. Yes. But when we were able to articulate our purpose and the vision and what we were passionate about, it really allowed me to consider how I influence that, how I can have the maximum influence and impact that. It gave me a lot of confidence about what I'd been trying to do with the culture, what I've been trying to do with the values, because it drove our purpose. So from a personal point of view, it actually gave me a place, gave me confidence about where I was taking the business. I regard myself, if you like, as the gatekeeper or the caretaker of the culture of the business, fed in with much curiosity, and it actually has led to some quite significant decisions at leadership level, who I want working alongside me and driving that business forward. And it, because I'll be honest, a few years ago, I wanted to grow the business or it to grow up. And I made some interesting choices as to how that might happen. And then looking back now, they were ill-informed choices. And if I just had that greater awareness and greater confidence, I dare say I'd be further down the line than I am now. Now there's no regret there, because I think we go.
And you have a hugely successful business.
Well, and it is wonderful actually being able to, and we have many challenges all the time, but it's just it's almost like a magic pill, being able to look back at your own personal brand or your own personal mission and remind yourself what you bring to the party. Don't try and be everything to everyone. Just remember what your role is. And it really informs it. Now, we have an approach now with the whole leadership team. We constantly revisit our purpose, our values, and what we individually bring. I'm sure some people find that a bit wearing, but I really enjoy it. And it makes for much more in-depth, authentic conversations, I have to say.
So I now want to thank you. That was fantastic sharing. Thank you so much. I want to now discuss with you about COVID and the pandemic. And interestingly, I thought about you a lot in lockdown because I was sat in my garden and I really reflected on all the work we'd done actually, and thought from a trends perspective how people were now in their houses, the market need had changed, how people not going into the office, that actually didn't want to go into the office anymore. It wasn't even the fact that people couldn't, but when we were allowed to, I felt like people weren't really going to do that, or they might cut back on going into the office. And the way that you lived in your house would be completely different from how you were doing it before. And I reflected on our conversations about the garden quite a lot, because I was sat in there, I suppose, quite a lot because of the heat. And I thought to myself, when you talked about passionate that all things grow, it wasn't just about building glass houses. I remembered you discussing how you were in the home, how you were in the garden, what you were growing, actually what you were doing in the glass house and everything around that. And I wondered if you could touch on that for me, because it was a huge reflection point for me, thinking about the trend of the future and what was coming next.
I think it's I mean, one thing you guys introduce us to is this idea of, you do take the bigger picture, you look at these trends. We're much more, in our situation, to the coal face, and we don't reflect often enough. Our experience through the early days of COVID was fascinating, because we found that there was still enough confidence, and we had a strong enough relationship with the customers we had to allow us to continue, albeit in a tentative fashion. So the early days were interesting because it immediately demonstrated that we were working outside, but primarily we had strong relationships with our customers. And it didn't just stop, it didn't drop off. In actual fact, we probably only experienced a 25 to 30% reduction in activity, we were very, very fortunate. But that in itself demonstrated that people were doing exactly what you said. They were in their garden. Actually, damn it, I want my greenhouse. Having gone on hold for 10 days,
sit.
what do I want to do? So actually, we regained momentum once the dust had settled quite quickly. And then once the restrictions were lifted a bit more, we went into late May and June, and we started to see this renewed interest, not just renewed, but also built up interest. And we actually experienced during June and July, we were slightly overwhelmed by the amount of interest and new orders we got. We actually sold in the event more than 100% more, so about 120% more in those 2 months than we did last year and we budgeted for originally. And not only was that shocking in light of COVID, it was also shocking in light of where we'd been a year or two ago.
Yeah.
So we were very much, and we continue to be very much, evidence that people have shifted their thinking.
Yeah.
I think what happened during COVID is it acted as an accelerator.
Yes.
Increasingly, people are wanting to spend time. So we saw that immediately with regards to the greenhouses and to some extent in the conservatories. We're trying to deal with that right now. We found that there's that demand is something that we are struggling to keep up to deliver on. That's a different challenge. But as you say, our mind is now thinking, is turning to the longer term. And interestingly, we've just recruited a product development engineer to start thinking about what this trend looks like. We don't have to, we don't have to deliver on it immediately, but we have to start the process.
Yes.
And I suspect increasingly we're going to be talking to our community and our customers about this outdoor space, how we can support them. And I think you and Darren are saying, look, you need to recognize this now and be part of that trend rather than it happening to you.
Yeah.
And that's really good advice. Absolutely. But all I can say is that we are absolute evidence that this is happening.
Yeah.
And of course, it won't be a straight line. It'll be quite an interesting journey. But opportunities abound. Outdoor space, but that passion about growth. We haven't really moved into the area previously about people's working life, but of course, career, healthy working environment, all of that is now coming up. So we're starting to tap. Our customers are taking us in that direction, and it's really, it's a very exciting time for us. We probably have almost too many opportunities, so managing that is interesting in itself. But boy, is it exciting!
It's interesting because I always say to people, you've either got a business that's pushing the market or pulling the market. And the push business model doesn't have enough work, and the pull business model tends to have too much.
Exactly.
One has its own challenges to deal with, interestingly, because obviously one's an infrastructure thing as well. How do you keep up with the supply and demand when you've got so much work coming in? Well,
particularly if I'm genuinely committed to our purpose, which is all that grows. And of course, our social value includes our team, includes the community, includes our suppliers and partners and our customers. So as we grow as a business, I've got to make sure that each of those, if you like, the slices of the pie, they grow together, not just chase for the investors or whatever else. And it's really given me a guiding light though. And that does mean I won't just head off in a direction. We'll go together. And right now, looking after the team and the customers while we've got this weight of work is terribly important to us.
Okay, so my final question before we wrap up is the future and what that holds. And what I tend to do is, I'm not sure if you know, we did a big campaign around Unite on Purpose. I'll show you the bag.
Okay.
And what we did was we got many businesses together to come and unite on purpose for one day. And so what I've been doing is I saw Boris, and Boris gave me the keys just for the day. And I said to him, look, I'm going to be interviewing Tom today. He's got a fantastic business. He's got his glass houses in Kew Gardens. And he said, oh, well, look, I'll give you the keys to the country, but only for one day. So I'm putting them in the bag for you, Tom.
Thank you.
I'm passing you the bag. Have you got it? Yeah, good. Right. So now you've got the bag, and I'm going to need it back tomorrow. But you have the keys to the country for one day. And if you could unite the country on purpose just for one day around everything that grows, what is it that you would like to do, Tom Hall, to be able to make that happen?
That's a very good question, isn't it? I think whatever I do, I'd start everyone at a very young age to really fully understand that growth of one's soul and growth of one's knowledge and growth of one's relationships and those sorts of things is self-fulfilling, is self-feeding. If you improve your own life by improving everyone else's life, you are not going to go far wrong. So what is the single thing I would do? I think I would probably get every primary school child in the country to learn, to get to a basic qualification, if you like, of growing, so that they get to the point of real pleasure in creating something and taking their time and knowing that it can be nurtured, and then just feeling that sense of fulfillment and ownership and just a sense of joy. If you can do that, grow your soul at the same time as growing something natural, I think the country would benefit for many generations.
Oh, that was wonderful. So I'm feeling like there might be an online platform at some stage in the future, passionate about all that grows for families and children alike by Alitex. My crystal ball.
Goodness gracious.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I absolutely love chatting with you as always. I loved the fact that you invited Darren and I into your family, which it does feel like a family when you come into your business. And I know, working on your personal brand, you are hugely passionate about community as well. And it's always been a pleasure working with you. So thanks so much, and thanks for coming on the show today. And all my beautiful viewers, thank you for tuning in again. And I've had a wonderful show today with Tom. And please, can I advise you that you go onto their website, Alitex, because they are just about to launch the most brilliant film, a purpose film, all around everything passionate that grows. And it really is, it's a 2 to 3 minute film, and I would strongly suggest that you watch that film. And if you would like to meet some of these incredible businesses that I have the absolute joy of interviewing, then come and join me on bobearth.com, where you will find me flying around the earth with all of these exceptional businesses, and they are building a brand to grow a business, to impact an industry and shift the world. And remember, it's a quiet revolution. And so subscribe to the channel and you will be able to watch all of these great interviews that are taking place. And I'm on again tomorrow morning, bright and breezy, because I'm going to be interviewing one of my beautiful businesses from Australia. So good day and good morning, or good afternoon and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And I'll see you tomorrow, bright and breezy.